Right, hello and welcome to Games Unplugged. I am your host, Connor, and with me I have my co-host, as it's now turning out to be, Mr. Drew. Please say hello.
Hello.
Hello. Alright, so today we don't have any other special guests with us, and I do apologize for that. We were having a little bit of problems getting a hold of anyone else to come join us today, and this is actually a really good topic to be talking about, so I feel really sorry for them. Alright, so today what we're going to be talking about is something not quite what we've really been talking about, but still kind of concerning as a gamer, and that is grinding slash farming in video games. And why do we do it? Is there any point where it becomes too much? Is it how do others feel about it? And overall, just what kind of games you'll find it in. Before we start, is there anything you want to say there, Drew?
Probably just to get some technical stuff out of the way first off. That is grinding and farming. What are they, and and the difference between the two?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the best way I could probably describe the two is by using an example a game rather, and that is somewhat notorious for its farming and grinding too, and that's Final Fantasy VIII.
Okay.
And now before I get into the difference, let's just say grinding is, now feel free to interject if I'm say something that's totally wrong, but grinding would be something as in fighting, just going out and just finding enemies and just defeating them, killing them, just for the experience points. And then farming would be finding something over and over and over again, or let's say get an item or something, or or go to a place that's going to have an item at such and such time, and just keep going back and just keep going there and there and there, and which is going to lead me into what I'm going to use as an example, just so you can get the difference, and that would be Final Fantasy VIII. Because that game has a system with its magic where you can actually draw, as they call it, magic from the monsters you fight and the enemies, and then you can then use the magic you drew as your own magic, as long as you keep drawing, because it keeps an ammo count for magic, instead of using the traditional MP and whatnot. And now, again, farming in this case would be, again, fighting one enemy over and over again just to get the magic that you want, because in that game you can then use said magic to increase your own stats.
Yeah.
Stats, and again, and the way I'm going to describe this is, in the game there's two islands, one at the top, one at the root, pretty much the top of the map, and one at the bottom of the map.
Yeah.
Which this is going to be an example farming. Basically, on those islands there are points where you can get basically the strongest magic from points, except once you go there, then they diminish, and you can't go back and get them for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So keep going back and forth between the two islands, and killing time in between. That would be farming, because I'm going to the exact same place, and where there's an enemy that will drop an item that I need. So again, I'll just keep constantly fighting this enemy over and over and over again. That would be farming.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's still into the grinding.
Section. But I'm just saying farming is just doing the same thing over and over again to get a certain item or something.
Well, that's all grinding. Everything that you were just talking about, that is all grinding. To be more specific, a definition of grinding is a term which is used in video gaming to describe the process of engaging in repetitive tasks during video games. It is often necessary for a character to repeatedly kill AI-controlled monsters using basically the same strategy over and over again to advance the character level to be able to access newer content. Sharing much of the same gameplay as MMORPGs, often featured grinding as well. Grinding may be required by some games to unlock additional features such as level progression or additional items. There's also terms in there which are pretty much called they are called treadmilling and pushing the bar, which are references to like weightlifting, which is essentially just pushing yourself to further limits while grinding. So making it a little more interesting. So like in an MMORPG, for instance, you could fight this monster over and over again to get parts from it, but to make it a little more interesting, you can always get rid of like maybe some pieces of armor. You may be high enough level, but you get rid of pieces of armor to make it a little harder, so it's not as monotonous every single time doing it. While farming, it has its own, which is let me just see if I can find it here.
Well, again, the way I see it, just in my head, is the farming is, going for items or something. It's not necessarily fighting per se. Like farming, I would only consider farming if it's like if you're going after a specific enemy just for its drop, just for like a rare drop or something. That would be I consider farming. Grinding would I be considered as going out, doing fighting multiple enemies just to get the EXP.
Yeah.
And like basically just only for the EXP.
The complete definition of farming here is to essentially, like you said, hunt the same monster to get a certain material, but farming is related to getting money off of it. So you're not necessarily hunting the monster for that part. You're hunting it so that you can make a profit off that part.
I don't
grinding all fits into the definition of grinding it for that piece of equipment that you want. As well as grinding it for the experience points, grinding it for the experience, like just essentially building yourself up as a better character.
I basically see grinding as doing the repetitive stuff like as a whole. So I'd see like doing it for like the money, the experience, the rare drop, everything. But I'd see it as doing like, say there's like a dragon that would drop one thing. I'd see farming as constantly fighting that dragon and nothing else. Whether it's grinding would be fighting that dragon, fighting other enemies as well as that dragon. I see grinding as that. Farming would just be targeting one specific thing. Basically, in my mind, farming is targeting one specific thing.
Yeah.
While grinding is, the whole thing, like doing stuff.
The entire experience.
Yeah, the entire. Yeah. So so like for example, if I was going after like one specific thing, I'd tell people like, man, farming for this item is just becoming a pain in the butt.
Yeah. I don't know all about that. I'd rather not go into that though, but...
We're going to be going to that later on in this, folks, so don't worry. Things may get a bit...
ragey?
Salty, ragey, however you want to put it. Because I think at this moment with our lives, we've all had... both me and Carter have something involving farming and grinding that's kind of kicking us off.
That's the entire reason why I hate RPGs. I'd rather play something a little more straightforward like Mario Kart, where I just drive around in circles.
They're making a left turn!
It's not NASCAR, and sometimes they make right.
I'm sorry, I have to say that.
Okay, so now that we pretty much got the definition of grinding and farming out of the way.
Yeah, we got the definition, so people don't confuse it with doing something else.
Yeah. So one of the main questions that I wanted to ask about tonight was essentially why do you do it? Like, is there any specific reason that you do it, or is it just because it's a part of the video game and that's just something you have to do?
Depends on the reward for me, really, because it's like, because I hate to go back to this, but Final Fantasy VIII, through methods of farming and grinding, you can essentially get the main character's best weapon before the end of the first disc, and the game's 4 discs long, so, for my first full run through, I literally went through the whole process, just because, it's like, this will be fun getting the best weapon, before the game, like, really starts. And, it just, to me, it really, I do it depending on the reward, if it'd be worth it or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Or not. And, you know, and how long it is and how much of a toll it is going to take on me, because grinding and farming can get very, very, very ragey sometimes.
Excuse me. I don't know where that came from. But,
Yes,
okay.
and at which point when the raging and grinding becomes a bit too much to bear, you go out to the store, you buy an action replay for one pretty much DS game, and you input the codes. For those of you who don't know, action replay is essentially cheat codes.
Yeah. Inserting cheats so that you don't play like a man. There's nothing wrong with cheating. It's just cheating to advance yourself is a big problem.
And there's also that again. It's look, I can do this grind, or I could do this I could do this farm this one thing, or this one item I need, or I could just input this, or I could just go out, spend maybe an hour to get the action replay, and input the code, and get what I need right away.
Yeah. Although it's becoming a little, or not a little, quite a bit harder for them to develop it, because game developers are now building, or specifically like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, they've designed the system so that you can't cheat without actually opening it up and physically putting in your own cheating device.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, you know, I'm not saying go out and buy this stuff. Don't go out and buy this stuff. Seriously, be a man to do the actual work.
Yeah.
I was just
unless you just want to have fun with the game, then by all means you can go for it. But pretty much, essentially, they make the grind easier.
Yeah, we're not
by basically giving you the thing.
I'm not recommending you go and buy this stuff. No. In fact, forget when you even mentioned the thing.
Yeah. Pretty much take the last 5 minutes that we just had there and just throw it out the window, please. Okay. So, with that being said, they've pretty much have come out stating that a contributing factor to why players grind is the desire of an ultimate goal, in which that many games, like many RPGs, they have a level cap, which ultimately is once you've reached that number, you cannot grow any higher. And so by grinding, you're doing the repeated tasks to just essentially get up to that higher goal, to the highest level that your character can possibly be. Or it's also relating to the to essentially like you said, farming for that one piece, right? So like in first-person shooters nowadays, like Call of Duty, for instance, they have a leveling up system where each time you level up, pretty much you get a new gun added to your arsenal that you can build for loadouts. And so you play online. As soon as you level up, you get a new weapon or attachment or certain skill that you can equip to yourself, which then you can use to grind up to another level and get another piece and use that piece. So like for instance, you could have an AK-47 right now, but then at 5 levels later,
an M16.
An M16, which is a much stronger gun. Sometimes, depends on the person, but in the game it's considered a stronger gun because of its fire rate and the clip size.
Yeah.
So that is another form of grinding where you essentially just grind for that next piece of equipment that you can get.
Yeah, but in order to get that, you just have to play the game. You're not specifically just targeting one thing. Just I'm gonna play the game. If I level up, I level up. No biggie.
Yeah, that's pretty much that's the reason why I would do it personally. Is just to essentially just have fun with the game, but also to better improve myself.
Yeah.
Which is actually the last reason that they state here on Wikipedia. Sacrilege. You never use Wikipedia. But they pretty much state that like the most relaxed version of grinding is just that players do it to enjoy the game, or to get a better enjoyment out of the game.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they pretty much just say, I got it, it's great.
Yeah.
I bettered myself because I know I got better and I was able to get this.
Yeah. Basically, we do it to get the good stuff.
Yeah. Which, like I said, that's the reason why I do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm just going to leave it there for a little bit. We currently have to go to our message from our sponsors. So, yeah. And we will talk to you guys in just a bit.
Do you love the track that you've been hearing for the last 15 minutes? Well, go down to newgrounds.com/artificalfear and go down and listen to his amazing works of hardcore metal. Such pieces as this one you're hearing right now, Final Fantasy Battle Theme, or a little more traditional, Returns Mass Metal Final Days. Experience video games and other sources of metal music in a new way. Introducing Metal Fear.
Hello and welcome back to Games Unplugged. I am your host Connor, and with me I have my co-host, Mr. Drew. Alright, so if you're just tuning in, although that seems kind of redundant, we've been talking about grinding in video games. What is the difference between grinding and farming? Which we discussed is essentially grinding the entire experience of an MMORPG, where you grind out monsters for either pieces of equipment or the experience of the game, or to just better yourself as a player, while farming is more or less farming for that certain piece of equipment to make a profit off of it. And then we started talking about cheating devices and how pretty much they help you with grinding, and which is where we're going to start talking about now, going a little off topic before the break here, because it just interests me that you did bring up the action replay device, which can help you with grinding, and I wanted your opinion on, do you think it's right to be using such things like this? Because doesn't it, like you said before the break, you played games like our MMOs so that you can have the whole experience and pretty much just play to better yourself and for the bigger goal, the bigger prize. So do you think using a cheating device is actually good then? Or do you think it takes away from that experience?
Yeah, and here's where kind of I guess you could say the gray area of that topic was, and that was basically I was spending like maybe 2 or 5 hours a day trying to get one thing until I finally just snapped and said, I got the money, I'm not spending another 5 hours. You know, and like I was thinking like getting it later down the road too, because it's like I'm gonna need to get this stuff in bulk soon. So it's like it's been 5 hours and I still haven't gotten one thing. Yeah. Screw this. And I just went out, got the thing. You know. And I mean it's like it's in the gray area is it the full experience when you've wasted 5 hours and you haven't gotten the thing, and then you go out, buy something, you know, action replay, use the thing just to get the stuff, and waste possibly countless hours trying to get it, or, you know, get the thing and maybe waste 2 hours because it's like, I can get the thing now. Now, and it's funny that you mentioned cheats, because there is a game I have played, an RPG, called for the Game Boy Advance called Golden Sun.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's funny because, you know, it has the rare drops, which may drive people insane, but it's funny because in order to but apparently there's a way to trick the game, actually, like without doing anything to the game at all. You just do a certain move at this certain time,
yeah,
and the game will 100% give you the item every single time. So it's like, I didn't input there was like no outside help at all.
So you essentially just exploited the game then. You exploited a fault in the game to
Yeah.
get the item.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that's right then? Or do you think there's a difference between using a cheating device and doing it that way? Because one is you're manually like you've bought in the device, you've put the game in and inputted the code and just given it to yourself outright, while the other one you're manipulating the game to thinking it has a chance at possibly not giving it to you, but in reality it's always going to give it to you. Do you think that's right? Do you think there's actually a difference there?
There is a difference. There is a difference whether it's using the input in the original device, that's bad, don't do that. Whereas, and then with the whole, it's an exploit in the game. I hate to bring up Smash again, considering this is totally off topic, but is wave dashing and L canceling okay to use in Melee? It's
the exploitation of a faulty system.
Yeah, exactly. Is that right to use? Because you talk to somebody who actually plays Melee at tournaments, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, it's totally legit to use," and then you talk to somebody who doesn't, and they'll say, "It's an exploit. Why is it? It's an exploit. I'm glad they fixed it in Brawl."
Yeah.
It's just that whole area is. It's in the game. You're not doing anything to the game itself. It's kind of a gray area too. Whereas it's in the game. Is it right to use it?
Yeah.
And that goes into exploits in general, because I know a really fun exploit to use in a video game that even when they remade it, it's weird. It's like, I guess it wasn't exploit in the original, but they remade it and they still put it in, meaning, was it an exploit at all now?
Sorry, which game was this?
It was originally for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and then it got remade for the Wii along with its sequel. And I think you know what game this is now.
No, I'm drawing a blank here.
Okay, it's Bayonetta. Basically, there's a glitch that involves you swapping weapons at the exact time, and this will sound very, very, very strange, but basically in that game you can have an option to attach rocket launchers to your feet. And the exploit is basically the game's about comboing, but there's a certain combo that you can do that you basically end with you basically doing a series of kicks with one leg. And the exploit is you have a weapon equipped on your legs on one set, because you have to have two sets of weapons.
Yeah.
And then on the second set you have the rocket launchers on your feet, and you basically do a combo with the first set that doesn't have the rocket launchers, and you do the fear of kicks. But when you input the last thing, the fear of kicks, you swap your weapon set to the rocket launchers, and basically you shoot like 30 missiles out of your legs. Whereas if you did the combo without swapping the weapons and you had the rocket launchers on the legs, you maybe shoot out 2. But this, you shoot out like 30 missiles maybe, so it tears enemies apart.
Yeah.
And bosses for that matter. And it was in the 360, but the Xbox 360 and PS3 version, it was an exploit then, except when they put it, and then when they remade it for the Wii, you think they would have taken that exploit out. But
well, as far as I know, the game was a direct port of the game, just they changed around like a couple of things by adding in the specific costumes which are given into the game, specifically Nintendo related, as well as changing the control letters just to match up with the system.
Yeah.
But I don't think they did anything else to change the game other than the costume and that. I think it was just a direct port in general. So,
but it wasn't. It's not actually a direct port, because apparently the original had online rankings.
Yeah.
Which the Wii took out. It was taken out on the Wii U version. It was taken out probably for the specific reason that people were using this said exploit.
Mm-hmm.
To basically boost their ranking, and they took it out of the Wii. So, the Wii U version, I should say. So, it was left, so they did change something, and they left that exploit in. So was that exploit actually intentional?
That's true too. It seems more like, I was gonna say it's a little more like cheating, but then again, that doesn't really qualify under a cheat. And cheats are more or less like a code or something that you input into the game that the game has already built into itself to do certain things. So like GoldenEye for the N64.
Classic example.
Yeah, the DK mode, which pretty much makes the characters' heads super big and they have no necks whatsoever. That would be a cheat. Well, that's more of exploiting a flaw in the game again, which it still begs the question that is it wrong? Is it pretty much the exact same as using a cheating device then? Because it pretty much seems exactly the same kind of thing. The only difference is manipulating the game. That's a fault part in the game, while using a cheating device is, well, cheating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
and it's a gray area.
Yeah.
It's a gray area. That's basically this. Because I mean, again, I could spend with the example of the extra video, I could spend like countless hours, maybe like 100 hours, getting this stuff, or I could just go out, action replay, 5 hours later, done.
Okay. So I want to switch gears here for a little bit, as we're still in a controversial area of grinding, and this goes more into the grinding itself. I wanted to know your opinion on this. This is coming from Wikipedia again, and it's the controversy of grinding in video games. It's basically, grinding is designed as a way to level out a playing field amongst players, and according to the I hate this name because I'm going to butcher it, the Pareto principle, which essentially is, let me just open it up here. The Pareto principle states that for many events, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. So in grinding, if a player has better aim, faster reactions, or more extensive tactical knowledge, they'll quickly dominate the game. However, that doesn't mean that they will still be getting the drops that somebody else will. So say like an item has a 20% drop rate, the player may be super amazing at the game, and they could probably beat, let's say, like a level 4 boss in a level 4 area in like 2 minutes, but because that item has a 20% drop rate, they're only guaranteed 20% of the time that they're actually gonna get it. Which is where controversy strikes in that just because you're good doesn't mean that you're gonna be rewarded.
And I think for stuff like that, it's more or less of the game's random generated numbers or RNG determining the drop rate. Screw you over basically. I mean, we've all had those times when the RNG decided.
RNG just wanted to smite us.
They press the rage button. It's like, and you're gonna rage now, and you're gonna rage now, and let's make you happy now, and now.
Yep. I've had that many times, which is again why I hate RPGs, because RNG is a cruel man, or woman, I don't know, but she loves to push my buttons, or he likes to push my buttons. So, I mean, and all, like, if you want to know my personal opinion on grinding, I personally think it's a waste of time. Which is the entire reason why I don't play RPGs often. And just because of that random factor that I don't want to have to leave fate to decide my skill and my potential as a player. I don't want to sit there and think, okay, I'm going to be doing this one more time because out of these last 16 times I didn't get what I've been looking for. So maybe I can get it this time, but I probably won't. Which, it's the entire reason why I hate RPGs, is the grinding factor of the game, and just overall just the experience is fun. Don't get me wrong on that. Like action RPGs, I am completely down for that. But and I have to farm a specific enemy to get a specific piece. It just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel like I'm being rewarded as the player I am. It feels like some little kid is holding that piece of candy in front of my nose, and it's just that little bit out of the reach.
Yeah, and it's nice that you mentioned action RPGs specifically because I don't know, me personally, I'm a lot more open to, grinding or farming in an action RPG, just simply because I've got more control over the fight per se. I don't have control over the drop, but like I've got more control over the fight per se. Whereas in a turn-based RPG, I can just basically be sitting here pushing, one button the whole time for like 5 hours, going like next. Whereas in an action RPG, I could be trying to get something for like the past 5 hours, but yet it doesn't feel like 5 hours because because I could have to like constantly be changing my tactics. My tactics up, just because the game's AI is acting this particular way, so it's like, okay, I've got to change my tactics. Whereas in a turn-based, it's more or less for turn-based, it's leaving more up. The turn-based, it's leaving more than just a drop, really, to the RNG. Whereas with an action RPG, there's more, the AI's going a bit more complex too, and I'm, having to constantly change my tactics. So.
Yeah, okay. So, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here, because we are running out of time. I just wanted to know your opinion on when is there too much grinding? Like, when does it become more of a tedious task than actually enjoying a game? So, like, for instance, would you consider grinding for achievements too much or too little? Do you think it's just right? Excuse me. Or do you think that, like, grinding in general is just too much? Like myself, I think it's a complete waste of time, super tedious, and I'd prefer not to do it.
It's funny because it's like, if you're doing something just for the achievement, rethink what you're actually doing, per se, but like, if you're grinding to get the good stuff in like the actual game, and like you're aware of the pain it's going to be, but at the same time it's like you're going to get this thing in the game, you can have a lot more positive experience, because it's like this is going to actually affect something in the game, whereas it's just to see that little pop-up saying you wasted 15 hours just for this little pop-up, see ya, versus that type of thing.
Yeah.
Because, again, I'm going back to Bayonetta, but it had achievements in the game. When you got said achievements, they basically gave you ultimate power in the game.
Yeah. So there was a reward for getting this achievement.
Yeah, and it means like, do you feel bad for using it? It's like, I worked for this thing. I worked for this thing. Like, like if I want to have fun with the game, there's another way to have fun with the game now. It's like, the reward is to be insanely overpowered to have more fun. but find a post of just seeing this little thing pop up saying, "You wasted 15 hours to get this little pop up, and I'm going to do absolutely nothing really in the game. Goodbye."
Okay. Alright. Well, I hate to cut it short. This one's going to be a little bit of a short episode for everyone today. This was a little more of a personal, social experiment. For us, we just wanted to pretty much vent after these last 2 days of gaming that we've been participating in.
Well, I don't know about you, but my god, it's kind of, for some strange reason, the RNG gods are smiling on me, smiling on me, whereas I know for you, you've been feeling their wrath constantly.
Well, it's not been fun. And it's pretty much the entire reason why I wanted to talk about grinding today.
For me, it's when they weren't, because there was a time when they were exactly doing what it's doing to Connor right now, just making me angry. So I basically have just stopped playing the game in general, and it's like, and I'm iffy about whether or not to pick it back up again. Despite the fact that I was thoroughly enjoying it until I got to the point where I had to farm for a rare drop, and the game's not giving me the rare drop. So it's like, yeah, and it's a turn-based RPG no less, so it's like, yeah, I don't want to do this. This is just boiling out of me pushing one button every so and so seconds. Whereas, again, with an action, they're smiling on me for some strange reason.
Yeah.
It's for some strange reason, it's like, but, like, I don't mind it, and it doesn't feel all that long. Again, is because, the AI is doing different stuff, so I'm constantly having to change my tactics up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for gracing us with your thoughts, Mr. Drew. And, yes. Join us next time on Games Unplugged. As always, I am your host, Connor. And until next time, please take it easy.